Hi guys! Today is a summer video, even though I am wearing a sweater and not being very summery, but it's raining like crazy out here. So, summer video inside. And we're going to paint easy flowers in watercolor and ink. And this is poppies and black Susans. Also some grasses and stuff, but mostly poppies and black Susans. And this is going to be so much fun. You can see the supply list below the video, and let's get going. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to paint with the watercolor first and then doodle on top of it with fine liner. And I'm actually doing most of this wet on wet, so you can see I'm starting with a black Susan. I just did one petal in water, clean water, and then just added a little bit of paint to the tip and just letting it flow into the water and creating kind of a gradient. Just doing more petals here and dipping in the water. You can see how beautiful it looks when it flows like that. And you can see how the different tones of the paint really just makes this come to life. This is such a fun way to paint. And it just kind of plays on the best things about watercolors, which is water playing around with the paint. So that's really cool. I'm just adding a center here with my brown, and I'm letting it flow a little bit into the petals, so you can see it gets this gradient where the center kisses the petals. I did the center wet on dry, just using the tip of my brush, so I could really get those white spots in the center as well as the brown. The white spots really emphasize the darkness of the color and the texture of the center as well. So make sure you are not just doing a black or dark brown spot, but try to use the tip of your brush and get some texture in there with some white, and you will get a beautiful result. I'm going to do a poppy now, and I just painted a rather big leaf petal in water and just using some red, warm red, and some warm yellow. And you can see the supply list on the bottom here under the video. So I'm just gonna put that right in there. But you can see I'm just doing this is a poppy from a little bit from the side, so the lower petal will be almost flat, but then there's going to be these petals on the sides as well. And you can see how the yellow really mingles with the red and creates a beautiful warm tone to it. So stunning. I love when the paint flows in the water. It's so pretty. Just adding a little bit of the warm yellow as well here, and then I'm just painting another one here, and this is going to be a side view of a poppy. I'm not going to do much about this. You can see how much I'm actually putting on water here. You could see how it actually dripped from my brush. You need quite a lot of water for the paint to flow around like this. When you're using this amount of water, it will dilute the paint quite a bit. You can see I'm using the tip of my brush to do a little bit of wet on dry as well as this wet on wet, just to create some contrast between the shapes here. So you're doing the shape in water, but then just adding a little bit of detail with the tip of your brush on the dry land, and you can get this beautiful contrast between the hard and the soft. Just adding a little bit more color here. We are going to do another layer because, as I said before, the water dilutes the paint quite a bit, and you risk getting a very light tone. And of course we don't want to overdo it, but watercolors are meant to be layered, and I do encourage you to do layers, especially if you are one of those people who like to just go in with a very dark color or very saturated color at the first go. Try to see if you can stop yourself doing that, because watercolors come to life when they are layered. Then you can get all those beautiful tones from very light to very dark. If you go in with a too dark wash from the beginning, you risk losing those very light tones, and that would be so sad, because watercolors are really about the contrasts, and especially the light tones are actually really beautiful when they are compared to the dark tones. So try to see if you can give yourself a couple of layers and just relax. I just got a little bit too much of the center running into the petals there. Just lifted it with a thirsty brush, and it's good. You can see I'm trying to incorporate different angles of these flowers, and that's because I really want to show these flowers from different perspectives. When we have a posy or a flower bouquet, you would never have only one angle of flowers. So I'm trying to show the different angles here. I'm just doing a bud here for the poppies as well. Just doing this long oval with a tip or the point here, and just adding a little bit of red to the green, and it can mingle into the paint. And then, as some of you might know, green and red are complements, and they will muddy themselves up a little bit, but that's totally fine. We haven't mixed them that much on the page, so I think they'll be good. If you were to touch it too much, it would ruin it, so try not to do that. Here I'm using my round synthetic brush with a very nice tip to it to add some stems here for the poppy seeds. You don't have to add stems right away. I'm going actually just very intuitive and adding where I feel like I need it. So now I'm just going in and adding a little bit of center here to the middle of the poppies. You can see how that darkness just flows into the paint. Be careful when you're doing this. You have to make sure that it's still wet, otherwise you will get some annoying blooms, because you're adding a wet paint if you were adding it to a drying surface. Check out my video on blooms, and I'll show you in there, but really be careful when you're adding wet paint to a drying surface, and preferably you shouldn't do that. But you can see what happens in a second as well here. I'm just adding a little bit of grass here. You can see I'm doing this with the side of my brush and working really fast. This is a loose painting, and we are just having fun and doing something relaxed here with the tip of my brush. I'm adding some lines as well, just to give it some life and character. And you can really imagine you can pick this bouquet up in some field maybe not in Denmark. We don't have black Susans in the fields, but we have daisies, a lot of them, but a lot of poppies, and I love them. They are stunning. If you have black Susans, I would love to hear. Can you pick up this bouquet out in the wild? That would be so fun. And if you can in your country, then I would love to hear it and envy you a little bit. I love my flowers too, but I would love to see even more wildflowers here. I'm going to do more videos on wildflowers in Denmark. So subscribe if you want to hear more about the videos, and more tutorials are coming up, and more tutorials are already here. So definitely subscribe, and you'll get a lot more information and videos. Also, I have a lot of classes if you are interested in that on my own school, Camilla Damsbo Art School, and there's a link for that school on the bottom of this video, well, in the text below. in the textbook, not in the bottom of this. Here you can just enjoy. You can see I just added a little bit of darker color here, and this is how it looks at the moment. I'm just going to let it dry for a bit, and we can come back to it with a fine liner. Now it's dry. It's very light, as you can see, but we are going in with a fine liner to refine some of the shapes and just doodle away. This is a fun summer project, as I said before, and we just want to have some fun, relaxing doodling, sketching, what you do in the summer. Of course, you can do a bigger and amazing art pieces in the summer, and that's totally fine. But when it's summer, you also want to be able to go light and have fun and just have time for both your kids and sketching and skinny dipping and everything. So I think it's just nice to be able to do some quick sketches and add some watercolor and some fine liner and just have fun with it. And if you like flowers in watercolor and ink, I actually have a class coming up very soon in July 2020. So if you're watching this later, it might already be there. It's going to be out on the 22nd. And I am going to show you 5 different flowers and how to sketch them, and it's going to be a free drawing guide and everything. So that's going to be so amazing and fun. I can't wait to show you that class. It's all about just relaxing and having fun. And I'm going to link it below the video as well, of course, after it's launched. But now let's talk a little bit about the inking process here. You can see I'm just doodling actually really fast and just working my way from the center of the flower and just out in just these lines that give a little bit of texture to the petals and just defines the shapes a little bit. So working my way from center and out, but also adding a little bit of detail to the tip of the petals, which is actually where a lot of the definition of the petal are placed. That's where you have those small curves and shapes. So try to see if you can get that too. You don't want to have a lot of flowers that are totally the same. You want to just vary it up and create some tips and turns and shapes that are kind of broken and lines that are wiggly and weird. I'm just adding the center to the poppies as well. Just small circles with lines. And I know that this is a little bit pale at the moment, and it's totally fine that you think that. It is, and that's because our water diluted the paint rather a lot. So I am going to add a second layer in a few minutes, but I wanted to add my fine liner first. And if you're looking for fine liners, make sure that you choose some that are waterproof. This is super important. The brand doesn't matter that much, but make sure it's waterproof, otherwise it'll be annoying when you are working with the wet paint. And also make sure that your paint is really, really, really dry when you go in with your water or your fine liner. If it's not completely dry, but only like 95 or something, and you think this is dry, your fine liner will actually act like it's not working. Somehow it goes into reaction with the water and stops working. I threw out many more fine liners than I want to admit, because I thought they didn't work, but it was just because I used them on a not 100% completely dry surface. So make sure it's 100% completely dry. It's very important. You can dry it with a hairdryer if you don't have the patience for waiting, but make sure it's 100% dry. You can see I'm just adding small details here and there for the different elements here. Don't overdo it, especially not with the grasses and stuff. It's just complementing the main focus, which is our flowers. Now we are done with the ink, and we can go in and add a final layer of color. And here I'm just adding wherever I feel like it's needed. Some of it, the paint will be added wet on dry, and then I'm just softening here with some water. And in some areas I will add it wet on wet as well. So here you can see I'm just wetting this petal, just dipping in some color. And I know it would be easier to say, okay, I'm just doing this layer all wet on dry or all wet on wet. The fact is that I work very intuitively, and I really think that it's somewhere in the combination of these techniques that magic happens. So try to see if you can combine them. Do some wet on wet and drag out those wet areas to the dry page, and you can create some beautiful hard lines as well, and complement each other really well. And you can see how much the extra layer is actually doing. You can see how it's just really making them pop suddenly. Where they were kind of flat is now, they're not now just a lot brighter and beautiful. If I had just put down a very hard layer of color with a lot of saturated colors right away, I would never get this difference between the softness and the lightness of the first layer and the brightness and vibrancy of the second layer. So try to make sure you have layers, and don't cover them all up with the second layer. That would just ruin the effect. But try to make sure that you have both of the layers visible, and you'll be fine. Of course, you can totally layer on top of the second layer. You can do as many layers as you like. Just try to make sure that you have some paper that can handle all the layers, and try not to put on more layers while it's wet. Make sure it's completely dry when you go in and add your second layer, or third layer, or fourth layer. How many layers you like. You can see just adding with the tip of my brush, so it gives us this beautiful texture on the petals. And I hope you will give this painting a go. I have a student Facebook group that I would love to see you in there if you want to share your beautiful paintings. And I'm gonna link that below as well, so you can find it. And I think we are done now. Just a few splatters here and there, just to make it come alive, and that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you will subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.